All right, today we are diving into what might be the single most powerful idea humans have ever had, God. We're going to trace it all the way back to its origins and see how this one concept totally reshaped, well, everything about the human story. So let's get right into it.
So, let's just start with the big one, right? The provocative question at the heart of all this. If we just, for a second, entertain the idea that God is a human invention, then you have to ask, why did we invent him? I mean, what was going on inside of us? What need was so deep, so powerful, that it made us create the divine?
You know, the philosopher Voltaire really hit the nail on the head with this one. And it's not really a statement against belief, not at all. It's pointing to something way more interesting, that the idea of God serves a vital function for us. It's a tool. It solves problems. So, what problems are we talking about here?
Well, to find the answer, we've got to go way, way back. I'm talking deep into our prehistoric past. Long before any organized religion existed, we're looking for that very first spark of belief, a spark born from the most basic, raw human emotions, fear and wonder.
And this timeline, wow, this really puts it all into perspective, doesn't it? We're not talking about a couple thousand years of history here. No. The seeds of what we would eventually call religion, they were planted tens, even hundreds of thousands of years ago. This is happening long, long before anyone even thought about building a city.
Okay, so get this. The very first evidence we have for any kind of spiritual belief, it doesn't even come from our own species, Homo sapiens. It comes from our ancient cousins, the Neanderthals. At a place called Shanidar Cave, archaeologists found bodies buried with flowers. This suggests they weren't just, getting rid of a body. It looks like they were preparing them for a journey, already wrestling with that huge, profound mystery. What happens after we die?
And it wasn't just about death either. Take a look at the incredible paintings from Chauvet Cave. An archaeologist named David Lewis Williams argues this isn't just art for art's sake. It was more like a technology of belief. See, early humans were surrounded by all these terrifying forces they couldn't control. Violent storms, the success or failure of a hunt, sudden sickness. So what do? You give those forces a face, a spirit, a god. Suddenly you can talk to it, you can plead with it, you can try to understand it.
So this ability to believe in stuff we can't physically see, that turned out to be our evolutionary superpower. The historian Yuval Noah Harari has a great name for it, the imagined order. Think about it. A shared belief in a god, or a common ancestor, that acts like social glue. It allows a bunch of strangers to trust each other and work together in ways that would have been totally impossible before.
So, as we move from these small hunter-gatherer groups into huge farming societies, the job description for God, well, it starts to change. A lot.
Right. So those old gods of the hunts and the storm, they evolve. They become the patron gods of entire cities. They're now the ones enforcing the laws, the ultimate justification for the whole social structure. God isn't just explaining reality anymore. God is designing it.
If you lived in ancient Mesopotamia, for example, your city's god was your identity. And the laws? They weren't just dreamed up by some king. No way. They were handed down from the city's supernatural CEO. The king was just the manager, the guy on the ground whose job was to make sure the divine will got done.
And this system, where the government is the religion, where divine power and political power are the exact same thing, that has a name. It's called a theocracy. And maybe the most perfect, most stable version of this ever was in ancient Egypt.
I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. In Egypt, the line between human and divine just vanished. The pharaoh wasn't some priest king who served the gods. The pharaoh was a god walking on earth. And that belief created a social order so incredibly stable it lasted for almost 3,000 years. Talk about the ultimate divine authority.
But, this whole top-down God-king system, it wasn't going to last forever. Around the 6th century BCE, something truly remarkable starts to happen. It's like a revolution of the mind, and it sparks up almost at the same time all across the globe. A philosopher named Karl Jaspers gave it a name, the Axial Age. And it really was a pivot point for humanity. For the very first time, you have these influential thinkers who start to argue that the really big truths, they're not found by looking up at the sky. They're found by looking inward, deep inside the human mind.
And here's the crazy part. It happened independently, all over the place. In India, you get the Buddha.
In China, Confucius. In Greece, you have Socrates. We're talking 3 absolute giants of human thought. None of them knew about the others, but they were all pointing humanity in the same radical new direction. And just look at the parallel here. It's stunning. The Buddha is telling people to find enlightenment within themselves. Meanwhile, Socrates is walking around Athens telling anybody who will listen that the most important thing you can do is know thyself. It's a huge shift, right? We're moving from a God out there to a source of truth in here. This isn't just some spiritual tweak. This is the birth of philosophy as we know it. It's building the foundation for ethics based on human reason, not just divine commands.
So, that brings us all the way to today. Right now, science can explain the universe. Philosophy can help us with our ethics. So why is the idea of God still so powerful? Why does it persist so strongly in our modern world? Well, the psychologist Carl Jung had a really interesting take on this. He suggested that God works as a powerful psychological archetype. Think of it like a universal symbol that's kind of hardwired into all of us, into our collective unconscious. So from this point of view, God isn't necessarily some being out there. He's more of an internal symbol that helps us wrestle with the biggest questions we all face.
Like this one. Why are we even here? At its heart, the idea of God provides a story, a narrative. It gives us a framework for purpose, a reason for being, an answer to that deep, nagging question of why, especially when the universe can feel so huge and random.
Or how about this one? What happens after we die? The concept of God offers an answer to that same fundamental fear that our Neanderthal cousins were dealing with back at Shanidar Cave. It gives us hope against that great, terrifying unknown, a belief that our story doesn't just end.
And finally, it tackles this. Is there any design to my life? The idea of God provides a powerful sense of order when things feel chaotic. It's the belief that our lives aren't just one random event after another, but that there may be chapters in a bigger story, one with a real, meaningful design.
So when you pull back and look at the whole picture, the concept of God has been this incredibly adaptable tool in our mental toolkit. It started as a way to explain the world around us, then it evolved into a blueprint for organizing society. And today, it's still a powerful way for so many of us to find deep, personal meaning in our lives.
Look, whether you believe it's divine truth or human invention, you just can't deny the impact. This one idea is what allowed us to build pyramids and cathedrals. It helped us create moral codes that hold millions of people together. It's what gave us the framework to even dare to ask those ultimate questions about our place in the universe.
So, we'll leave you with this last thought to chew on. If we did invent God to meet our deepest needs, what does the incredible, lasting power of that invention tell us? Not about God, but about us. What does it reveal about the fundamental nature of being human?